welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea from Game Informer, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. We've got a lot to get to this week. Not only did I have to pre-record an episode last week, but I also spent the last week at Summer Game Fest, meaning I have some hands-on impressions, and of course, as I promised, all the news that we have missed from the last week. As such, I'm happy to welcome back my coworker at Game Informer and a delightful all-around human being, Charles Harte. Charles, how are you doing?
Hello. I am doing tired.
Yeah, that's a common thread with people who attended Summer Game Fest. I think that extra day really was like a stake in the heart of any energy that we hope to preserve going out of that Summer Game Fest just blast radius, essentially.
Yeah, it's like the end of my first day back at work too was the other, like I was there and then I came back, and right when I was about to fully recover, it's like back at the grindstone. But it's all like it's a fun tired, you know? It's like the end of the day at Disney World. You're like, I couldn't walk another step, but it was a good time. So
exactly, yeah. It's one of those things every single time I go to one of these long conventions or big, super busy conventions or expos, I'm always like, I am absolutely exhausted, but also somehow energized because like it reminds you of like why you love doing this so very much.
yes.
But like this was your first major gaming event, and I think like your first overall working as a member of the media. So like, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. It was like it was really nice to meet so many people. I remember I very much I'm not like great in huge crowds of people, generally speaking. So I remember after I went and I saw the main Summer Game Fest show, and as we left the theater, I kind of had like my blinders on that I'm used to having, like when I'm in like cities and stuff, of like, if I don't pay attention to anyone else, they won't pay attention to me. And I was walking with my boss, Ben Hansen, and he was like, hey, that was Sam Lake, the guy that made Alan Wake. And I was like, oh, I just passed him. He's like, hey, that was Man Engaged, the star of Immortality. I was like, whoa, okay, I need to, I guess, be like paying attention to the people around me. And then once I was like saying hi to people, it was like really cool.
Yeah, you've got to have your head on a swivel at those events. I think that like, was it you that I walked up to and I was like, oh yeah, there's Mark Cerny like directly behind you. You know,
I think so, yeah.
Like one of the main people for like Sonic 2, and then also like the creator of like the PS4 and PS5.
Yeah, well, and I was distracted because he was right next to Jeff Keighley. So it was that thing of like, yeah, it's impossible to go 5 feet without running into these people. Yeah.
We're going to get to like the game side of it later, but did you have any like memories or anything that really stuck out to you about like your time out in LA? And also, was this your first time in LA?
This is my third time in LA,
okay.
But I had never spent so many days there. I did, when I was a kid, we drove there from Ohio, which took us like 2 weeks. That was like a big fun adventure. And then I visited once in 2019 to say hi to like my cousin who lives down there. But both times it was like a night or 2 nights. And this was, I think, 4 nights.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, no, I think the story of me really getting my footing it was in that right post Summer Game Fest thing. We went upstairs and there was a Samsung after party, which I was like, I just thought that was funny branding. They were like, hey, do you want to come to our after party? We're the #1 sellers of OLED monitors. And I was like, well, if you say less, I'm
when
there.
You put it that way.
Yeah. So that was the first space I was in, and it was like exclusive, and I was like rubbing elbows with all these people, and I like didn't really know how to handle myself. And right as we were about to leave, Man Engaged, I mentioned, who's a star of Immortality, we passed her one more time, and Ben was like, oh, we should say hi to her. And he went to say hi to her. And I was like, I don't know. I don't want to talk to anyone. And then Ben was like, oh, and this is Charles. He's a big fan. And I was like, no, don't say it like that. So it was like really awkward.
Wait, Ben put you in an awkward situation? That's so out of character for him.
He really did. But then I told her I was playing Immortality, and I grew up with that cousin I mentioned that lives in LA, and he never lived close to us. We'd see him a few times a year, and we were like adults now, so it's been a while since we saw each other regularly. And so I told her that the last time I saw him, we had a tradition of when we were kids staying up as late as we possibly could together so that we would spend like we'd have just enough more hours and try to stay up all night just to like hang out a little bit longer. And then we would always fall asleep at like 4 a.m. or whatever. And this last time we saw him, it had been years. It was like COVID. And then we were like, you know what? Let's play Immortality. And so me and him and my brother all like sat together, played Immortality, had our minds blown because that game's wild. And I told her that, and she was like, "Oh, that's really nice." And she was like actually genuinely touched by it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is like a human being that empathizes with me." And then she was like, "Oh, and you should thank this guy." And Sam Barlow, the guy that created the game, was right next to her, and I didn't know what his face looked like, so I was like, that was even more embarrassing. But it was like a nice moment for me to be like, okay, these are approachable instances. I can like exist in these spaces and no one makes me feel out of place. And it was all up from there.
Yeah. It's always so fun to like run into people like unexpectedly at these events.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to a Tetris 40th anniversary party, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like Hank Rogers, who was if you watch the Tetris movie, he's like the guy who went over to Russia to try to like secure the licensing rights for Nintendo." And Alexei Pajitnov, who is the creator of Tetris, are going to be there. And I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm going to like get to meet those guys." And I talked to PR. I'm like, "Hey, would I be able to like meet them and like take a picture and everything?" And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I walk in and I'm just like, "Oh my God, that's Nolan Bushnell, the creator of Atari and the founder of Chuck E. Cheese." And I'm like, I have got to say hi to him, and like had like a 5-6 minute conversation with him. It's just an absolute legend. One of those guys I've always wanted to just like meet because of his impact on the games industry. And then I was at the Xbox Mixer, got to chat with Jeff Keighley and Phil Spencer for a while. That was cool. Who else did I just randomly run into? I mean, I got to chat a little bit with Hidetaka Miyazaki, the guy behind Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. So yeah, like lots of like really cool people running. I mean, obviously Takashi Iizuka, I see him every single time I go out there, the head of Sonic team.
We were walking and a person passed us, and Ben just went, "Oh, hey, Shu." And I was like,
"Oh,
Shu,
yeah.
who's Shu?" And he was like, "Oh, Shuhei Yoshida." And I was like, "Oh, you're like, you're on such close speaking terms with him. You've shortened his name. I only know him as like a first and last name person." I thought that was funny too.
Sam Lake, I'm so bummed I didn't get to see him this time. I see him pretty much every time we're at these events. And he was pretty much in LA and then out of LA because he's doing like jury stuff for Tribeca right now.
That's right, yeah.
And he was basically came in for the presentation or the YouTube Theater Summer Game Fest live stream, and then was like out the next morning. So I didn't get a chance to see him, unfortunately. But yeah, it's always so much fun, like just running into some of these people just completely unexpectedly too.
Yeah.
That's the thing about going to places like the JW Marriott afterwards, which is like where we all kind of congregated, or just Summer Game Fest proper. Like you just be walking around and be like, "Oh, there's so and so." Like that's really cool. But we're going to transition over to the news. But before we do that, a reminder that you can join the free All Things Nintendo Patreon page, which gives you the easiest access to all things Nintendo. I just ran a poll over there last weekend asking people what they would like to get out of hypothetical paid tiers on the Patreon page if I were to ever go that route. So you can even have a say in the future of the content that I bring. You can submit questions and topic suggestions there as well. Or you can just email me directly at brian@allthingsnintendo.com. So Charles, as I alluded to earlier, it was Summer Game Fest this last week and weekend. We have plenty of news to get to, but probably not nearly as much as we will be getting once the Nintendo Direct that Nintendo has announced for June. We just don't know the exact date. Once that arrives, we'll probably have a lot more. Still, we do have some fun stuff to talk about from the last 2 weeks. Let's start here. One of the most legendary series in strategy gaming history was announced, Civ 7, Civilization 7 from Firaxis. And much to people's surprise, it's bringing the newly announced entry to Switch. So during Summer Game Fest, we learned that is coming out. And I think people probably assumed, even though Civ 6 is on Switch, I think people probably assumed that Civ 7 is not going to come to Switch. It'll probably come to whatever the Switch's successor is.
Right.
But much to our surprise, it is. And for those who don't know, I mean, are you a big Civ fan?
I am not.
Okay, so you basically take control over a civilization that you choose, and then guide it through the ages as you try to build up your civilization and then win through one of four methods. It's called a 4X. So you can usually win by like, I think in Civ, it's usually like you can like advance your culture so much that you can like go out into space. So like you've like, transcended Earth essentially. You can destroy the other civilizations. Oh God, you can win through diplomacy, and I forget what the other ones are. I think if you just become like so enlightened that like your civilization wins. I probably messed up one or two of those, but it's been a long time since I've played a lot of like Civilization. We don't really know a whole lot about Civ 7, but we will learn more in August. I would have to assume it's part of Gamescom. That's
Oh yeah,
right up the Gamescom alley. But are you excited at all for Civilization 7?
I am. I mean, it's not a game series I've ever been like disinterested in. It's just never one that I've gotten around to checking out. I also I don't know how long, but I feel like they were locked on PC for a while, and I was never like a PC gamer growing up. But yeah, I'm surprised. Is it launching on Switch?
It seems like it. I mean, like I said, we're gonna learn the first real details next, or not next month, I guess August. And I bet we'll learn like if it's going to be like a simultaneous ship. But yeah, I was shocked at that.
That trailer was really cool. I really like the concept of the like one shot trailer, and the like the way it zooms in, and then it's like, oh, this was normal size the whole time. Just like the way the perspective changes. I thought that like from a design and video editing standpoint was like really impressive.
Yeah, and they always do such a great job. It's one of those franchises where like if you really devote the time needed to get into it, it will pay you back, and it will absolutely consume your life. So I'm going to hopefully check this one out when it comes out. Probably not on Switch, if I'm being honest. It'll probably be, I mean, strategy games in general. I mean, I've talked about how great the Switch is for the strategy genre, but I've got to say, like games like this, games like City Builders, like City Skylines, I'm glad they're on these other consoles and other platforms. But if I'm playing them, I'm probably doing it on my PC.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just have to stay tuned and learn more about that come August. But Charles, what was your first pop culture obsession that like you were just like all about?
My first pop culture obsession.
This may be actually inflicting like psychic damage to me because like we covered on this week's Game Informer show, you were born in the year 2000. So this is going to make me, it's going to be something that I got into probably in high school.
Is this a leading question to what I think it's leading to?
It might be. It is a leading question.
Okay. My first ever video game was Lego Star Wars.
Okay.
It was the first game I ever owned. It was a thing I would go around to the kids in my class and be like, do you like Legos? Do you like Star Wars? You're going to love Lego Star Wars. So I assume you're leading me towards Lego Horizon, but I don't know.
No, actually, because you got to get hands-on with that. So this is a little bit of a tease. We're going to save that for the main segment.
Okay.
But the reason I brought this up was my first pop culture obsession was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Sure.
I was obsessed with the Ninja Turtles. I had Ninja Turtles everything. I mean, I liked like other stuff too. Like I liked like Ghostbusters and things like that. But Ninja Turtles was like my jam for like the earliest days that I could remember of like being into like a brand, right? And all the action figures, all like everything.
Did you have a favorite turtle?
So at first it was Donatello, and that's why purple was initially my favorite color, which you're decked out in right now.
I am.
But that was primarily because in the NES, the Konami NES Turtles game, he had like the longest range. So he was like the most useful character in that game. I eventually transitioned to Leonardo because I liked him as like the leader, and he was like, just he had swords and everything that was really cool to me. But now I have to go with Raphael. Raphael's my favorite turtle. I never really had a Michelangelo phase, even though I like all the turtles.
It's a very specific type of person where Mikey's their favorite turtle.
Yeah.
I was always a Leonardo for some reason. I'm even though I am very purple. I do like Donnie. It's between Leo and Donnie for me. But as a kid, I always was like, yeah, the main character. That one's my favorite. I like that he's the important one.
So we got a few years ago Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, right? Retro style, side-scrolling beat 'em up, co-op, just this amazing homage to like the heyday or like the earliest days of that franchise, both in video game, like the video game heyday, and also like the earliest animation, right? The thing that took me away from the Ninja Turtles back in like the early to mid 90s was the Power Rangers.
Hmm.
So now we appear to be getting the Shredder's Revenge of Power Rangers.
Oh yeah,
Mighty
yeah,
Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. So we'll go from TMNT Shredder's Revenge to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, announced during the Summer Game Fest showcase. And unlike Shredder's Revenge, which was developed by Tribute Games and published under Dotemu, this is actually developed by Digital Eclipse,
oh
which is the
yeah,
studio behind Atari 50, TMNT Cowabunga Collection, and the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. And like TMNT Shredder's Revenge, it's a side-scrolling co-op brawler in the style of like the 90s co-op brawlers that existed then. But it looks like there's also going to be 3D like Zord sections, which look really cool, as well as first-person Megazord boss fights,
yeah.
which, come on. And then the synopsis says that it's going to recreate classic moments from the first Power Rangers series. So I'm 100% on board. Like, how did this announcement hit you?
I wasn't a Power Rangers kid growing up. My mom, for some reason, thought it was too violent, even though I was allowed to watch like Batman the animated series, which is objectively more violent.
It's pretty violent, but it's a cartoon, so it's not like live
Yeah,
action.
yeah, that's true. But the thing I enjoy about this is like what a perfect developer. Digital Eclipse is like exactly who you want to do this thing. It's really nice when you hear a certain team is developing or publishing a certain thing, and then you're like, okay, this is going to be good. Like I can rest easy knowing this is going to be like a quality game.
It's like the old school like Nintendo seal of quality. Like
Yeah,
before it was so diluted and stopped meaning something. Like back in the day, like the Nintendo seal of quality was like, oh wow, Nintendo gave it its approval. And eventually it became completely meaningless because they were like
yeah,
slapping it on everything that just happened to come to a Nintendo console. And we know there's plenty of crappy games that have come on Nintendo consoles. But we don't know when this game is coming out or what platforms it's coming to, but it would be unbelievable if it does not come to Switch. Like
yeah,
this is
yeah.
tailor
Oh yeah,
made for the Switch.
absolutely.
Are you going to check this out? Did you ever check out Shredder's Revenge?
I didn't. I probably won't check this out just because it's not my kind of thing, but definitely the kind of thing where I am excited for the people that like it. It's yeah, very cool.
It's just so perfect. The progression of like, okay, my pop culture obsessions went like TMNT to Power Rangers, and then eventually to like, I mean, I guess sandwiched in there was like the beginning of my love of Sonic the Hedgehog as well. But like, yeah, having like this be like the transition from Shredder's Revenge, even though it's not the same developer or same publisher or anything, but the same gameplay style to this. It's like, wow, what a perfect transition. I'm sure a lot of people had that same experience who are my age.
Yeah, yeah.
But that wasn't the only announcement from our friends at Digital Eclipse.
Oh,
So, in collaboration with Crazy Viking Studios, they also announced Volgarr the Viking II, which is a direct sequel to the extremely difficult 2013 Volgarr the Viking. And it promises new power-ups, new items, huge roster of challenging bosses, speedrunning tools, 6 different endings, and a practice mode, which having played a little bit of the first Volgarr the Viking when it first came out, I can tell you that's going to come in handy.
yeah. I hadn't heard of this game.
Do you have it? Did you ever play the first one, or did you not even hear about that one?
No, yeah, I didn't know about this.
So it looks like you're looking it up right now.
Yes.
Tell me your first impression when you see this game. If you can find like a trailer or anything.
I'm looking at screens. It's definitely a. If you told me this game was 30 years old, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks.
It's designed to look that way. Are you looking at screens of the first one or the sequel?
I'm looking at the sequel.
Okay, the sequel does have some visual enhancements, if I'm not mistaken. I think that the first one actually looks more old school
Yeah,
than
yeah.
the sequel.
It looks like so. Is this like a item, like equipment bar up at the top? How does that work?
Oh God, I have no idea. I'm not
Okay,
looking at the
never
same
mind.
screenshots you are. And again, it's been 11 years since I tried the first Volgarr the Viking.
But I would definitely check this one out.
Yeah, I mean you should. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
do you
yeah.
like kind of like the maddeningly difficult genres that exist out there?
I do only because I like. I used to be like, oh, I'll never be good enough to beat it, and then I was like, well, my current level is having not beat anything. So if I get any progression into it, I feel so cool because it's like, yeah, this is the game that no one's supposed to beat. This is the game that's supposed to be so hard it's impossible. So when you do succeed at it, you feel like a god.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you into like Souls likes and Elden Ring and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. I never finished. I think I've never finished a Souls like, unless the the Star Wars Jedi series counts. But like,
Loosely.
yeah, I was with Wes in our fight for Lies of P in our Game Informer top 10 last year.
Hmm.
That was like one of my favorite games I played, and I do like Elden Ring a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is going to have transferable skills from Elden Ring, but if you're interested, you don't have long to wait because Volgarr the Viking II comes to Switch and all major platforms on August 6th. So right around the corner.
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
How about this? Cult of the Lamb. Did you play that at all?
yes. Love Cult of the Lamb. My
Okay.
partner loves Cult of the Lamb too.
One of my favorite games of 2022. And did you hear about its next free update?
Is this the co-op
It
update?
sure is. It's
Oh, heck
called
yeah.
Unholy Alliance, and you and your partner might be able to enjoy it together now. Local co-op is added, and a new playable character, the Goat, who is designed for
Okay.
co-op since he deals extra damage and can swap weapons with the Lamb. And it
Mm.
also says that solo players will get a bunch of new powers and abilities if you're not like a fan of co-op. So the Unholy Alliance free update comes to Cult of the Lamb on August 12th. I'm assuming you're all about this.
This is by far the most likely thing I'm gonna check out so far. My partner really, really likes Cult of the Lamb because she likes the uh she likes the spooky cult stuff, and then she
Mhm.
also likes the cutesy like farming sim and like managing the town. The only thing she actually isn't crazy about is like the action combat. So the fact that I can jump in and do that with her, I think would make she'll be very excited.
God, I need to get back to that game. I beat like the first few bosses
Hmm.
and then I just fell off because something else came out. And now it's like they've released so many announcements or so many new updates since I played it in 2022. It's like I really want to get back to it and like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's such a good game and it's very like okay, taking cues from like Binding of Isaac and Hades and everything like yeah, this game was right up my alley and I want to go back and check it out with all the updates. But I also just like re-downloaded um, No Man's Sky. I re-downloaded
Mm,
like Monster Hunter World and
yep.
Frostpunk One because I've been playing all these like newer versions or seeing all these newer versions of these games and like hearing about like the updates that have come to No Man's Sky, and I'm like, God, I want to go back to that. And then of course, like because I want to go back to so many games, I don't go back to any of them. I'm just like, all right, well, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just play Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth until like I just fall asleep.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah,
it is the season for re-downloading games you're never gonna actually replay. Yeah.
I really do want to give Monster Hunter World another shot though, because I was so impressed by Monster Hunter Wild or
Yeah.
Wilds. Um, but speaking of games that I want to go back to, but probably will not, did you ever play Void Bastards?
No, I know Alex Van Aken loves this game.
So it was a retro roguelike first person shooter. Game Informer gave it an 8 out of 10, so well liked game.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
we
Yeah.
learned last week about a sequel called Wild Bastards. And it promises 13 playable characters. You can engage in a relationship management mechanic with your gang. So these are
Wow.
all like gang members that you recruit, and then also a challenge mode. And I watched the trailer, and honestly, it looks incredible. Like it looks like so much fun. Like the art style is super fun. The idea of like there's like you manage your gang's reputation or relationships. You can also heal your gang members like in between missions. You can level them up. And then since each planet has a different terrain and enemies, you can choose like which gang members you want to bring onto the planet to help you out based on like your intel that you have. So it's like it like wants you to like get everybody leveled evenly and like divvied out based on like what stuff you want to like accomplish on that mission. So it looks really promising, and it's coming to Switch and other platforms on September 12th.
Sick. And so do you play as all 13 characters and then you also manage the relationships between them?
I believe so. That's what I was when I was doing the research for like this news segment. That seemed to be like what they were indicating. I don't know how much information they really have released about this one,
Hmm.
But yeah, it sounds like a really awesome. Like you could choose like who you want to play as, and then also maybe like which like AI squad mates you want to bring in. But I might
Mhm.
be wrong in that regard.
Yeah, that's still like honestly like a really good pitch. Like I'm very interested in that.
And I don't know if
Uh,
you brought up anything, but like check out the art style and like see the
yeah,
game in
yeah.
motion because it has a really unique art style. Like I think I like it better than the Void Bastards art style, which kind of I don't know. I wasn't a fan of like the coloring of it,
Mm,
whereas this seems like really appealing visually and like I love that like each character plays different. So I really want to get my hands on this game, and hopefully there's like an opportunity to do that. I don't know if it's on. Maybe there's like a Steam Next demo.
I believe that.
Let's see.
Although
It
I have
seems like it
no.
would be like tailor made for that,
Oh
right?
yeah, download Wild Bastards demo right now.
Oh man. Speaking of things I will be downloading, I'm gonna save that page right now because yeah, I will be checking that out. Maybe this weekend. I'm taking a day off here. Maybe that's part of what I will
Oh
do on my
yeah.
day off. But yeah, coming out very soon, September 12th, just in time for the fall rush. Hopefully, it beats some of the fall games because that would be one that I would really like to give a fair shot. Right? And it's
Hmm,
hard to
hmm.
give so many of these games fair shots when they come out alongside these massive games.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So in 2017, Charles, we got Yooka-Laylee from Platonic Games. And it was
Yes.
basically a slightly modernized love letter to Banjo Kazooie on Nintendo 64. And last week, Platonic announced a remaster of that 3D platformer. Have you heard about this?
I did hear about this.
The name is perfect, but it's going to be very hard for me to change from Yooka-Laylee. It's called Yooka-Replaylee.
Okay. Yeah.
So it adds new animations,
Uh,
better performance, new challenges, a new collectible currency, which, I don't know how I feel about that because it's already a very heavy collectathon. A world map, so like you can know where you're going. That was the thing that I had a lot of problems with. I actually reviewed this for Game Informer back in the day. I think I gave it a 7, somewhere in the sevens out of 10.
mhm.
Um, New tonics, which is the game's power up system, as well as the ability to equip multiple tonics, better gameplay, camera controls, and a rearranged soundtrack. And I don't think it's officially confirmed for Switch, but it looks like it's only on Steam right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we also don't even know when the game is coming out, so it might even be planned for Switch too.
Sure, sure.
But did you check out Yooka-Laylee at all when it first came out?
I did not. A
Think
running trend.
is there? I mean, there's kind of some obscure follow-ups that we have on this episode, but
Mhm.
have you like seen anything on it? Like, I honestly thought this first one was okay.
Yeah, I know.
The,
I know of it. I think what happened is I got it and I was kind of interested in it, and then I got like the Spyro Reignited trilogy around the same
oh yeah,
time, and then I was like, I'm gonna check that out instead. But I am like a fan of the constant attempts to reinvigorate the like 3D platformer as a genre because it's not a thing we get a lot of nowadays, but like
Mhm.
20 years ago they were all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you a fan of like games with a lot of collectibles?
Yeah.
Well, then I almost said Banjo Kazooie. Yooka-Laylee is right up your alley.
Uh-huh.
Goodness gracious, so many collectibles,
So many.
and they're adding a new currency as well. So there you go. Let me see. What did I give Yooka-Laylee? I liked the sequel a lot more. So Yooka-Laylee was a follow up to or a spiritual successor to Banjo Kazooie. Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, because like Platonic is founded by a bunch of the guys at Rare.
Right.
So that was a follow up to. So I give it an 8 actually.
Okay.
I think I was one of the higher reviewers on that one. And then Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, which is also on Switch. I gave that a much higher, or not even on a much higher score, but I gave it a higher score. That one was more of a spiritual successor or an homage to Donkey Kong Country.
Okay, yeah. That was 2D, right?
Yes, it was a 2D
Yes.
platformer. What did I give this one? Bringing it up now. Gave it an 8.5. So a higher score, but not substantially higher. But I really, really like that one. I was always more of a fan of Donkey Kong Country than I was Banjo Kazooie, but I liked both of them growing up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would highly recommend Donkey Kong Country fans, if you've been waiting for a new Donkey Kong Country game, go play Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. But if you're a Banjo Kazooie fan, you should absolutely check out Yooka-Replaylee whenever that comes out, and it sounds like they're making some very, very welcomed improvements with that one. But yeah, that is that one. And then the Switch Online Game Boy Collection has added 5 classic games from the
Oh
Mega
yeah.
Man series. Are you a Mega Man sicko?
I'm not. I was like thinking this is like I'm always looking to expand my like knowledge of classic games, and Mega Man is always one where I was like, there's so many of those games. I feel like I need to play at least some of them.
Well, Mega Man Legacy Collection, the first one,
Mm,
done by Digital Eclipse.
of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the one where they really started like gaining like, oh, these guys know how to do like a really good collection, like
Yeah.
compilation. Because from there they went to Street Fighter 30th Anniversary. I mean, there were some in between, but like the tentpole ones were like Mega Man Legacy Collection, Street Fighter 30th Anniversary, then TMNT Cowabunga Collection, Atari 50, and now it's just now they're rolling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the following Game Boy games are now on Switch Online: Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, Mega Man 4, and Mega Man 5. And as I mentioned, they're playable now. And I've actually never played these aside from, I think, Mega Man 2 on an episode of Replay. But I was poking around a little bit, and it sounds like these really start getting good with 3.
Mm.
So if you check these out, maybe start with 3, or maybe start with 1. I don't know, but like are the Mega Man games on the NES collection? Because those are the ones that, let's see.
That's what I was gonna ask. Are the Game Boy versions like significantly different in any way? Because that wasn't a platform I know them as existing on.
From what I understand, the first 2 are kind of like worse versions of the NES, but like it doesn't look like they are on. No, the NES versions are not on Nintendo Switch Online, so you would actually need to get the Mega Man Legacy Collection if you wanted to play those versions on Switch.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, it seemed like Mega Man 1 and 2 were kind of like, let's try to do the NES versions, but like dumbed down and like able to run on Game Boy. But 3, 4, and 5 is like really where they started becoming like their own standalone games.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So yeah, those are available now on Switch Online's Game Boy catalog. I also wanted to shout out before we wrap up the news segment here, because I have not had a chance to dive in yet. Game Informer freelance writer Lucas White, who penned our Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance review, he scored it a 9 out of 10. That embargo lifted this week, and said, quote, "The choice of which version to pursue is presented in-game in a way that's practically seamless," because it does give you the option to basically, like, you start the story, and then at a certain point in the story, it's like, okay, you can pursue the original line, like the original quest line, or you can pursue this new vengeance quest line. And then he continues, "It simply feels like yet another option in a game and series full of choices that impact where the narrative goes. There isn't special attention drawn to it, nor does it feel like an awkward attempt to replace or undermine the original. It's just more SMT5 to dive into, which, for an already jam-packed RPG full of narrative agency and monster collecting action, is more food on the table for the feast." And it was a hell of a feast to begin with. So again, 9 out of 10, gets the Game Informer must play badge. You can read that full review over on GameInformer.com. And then we're going to wrap this up with a lighthearted news item here, Charles. The Animal Crossing Aquarium event that was in Seattle earlier this year is hitting the road and visiting more aquariums.
Whoa.
So I'm not going to read the names of the aquariums, but here are the cities that they are visiting: Myrtle Beach, New Orleans, Atlanta, Newport, Oregon, Boston, Tempe, and Chattanooga.
No.
I know, I was very bummed that Minneapolis. So Mall of America in Minneapolis has a pretty decent aquarium in the basement of it. And I was bummed that this was not part of that tour, because Nintendo does actually visit the Mall of America quite frequently for like their activations. So,
yeah.
But no Ohio either.
Yeah, Newport, Kentucky we have a Newport aquarium like right across the river. So you said Newport and then you said Oregon to clarify. I was like, no.
Yeah, that was the one I wanted to clarify, because I know there are multiples there. There's not a whole lot of prominent Bostons or New Orleans anyway.
Yeah.
So the one in Myrtle Beach started today, and goes through August 11th, but other ones begin and end during that time window as well. So they overlap too. So it's not like there's just one that's running each time and then they relocate all this stuff. So basically what it sounds like it offers is like Animal Crossing photo op. Sounds like some of the mascots are going to be there on certain days. And then fun animal facts from Blathers scattered throughout the aquarium, which unbelievable synergy right there. Like I love that because Blathers, for those who like maybe haven't played Animal Crossing or they don't remember Animal Crossing, he's the guy that you bring all the animals to that you catch or the insects that you catch or fish or whatever, and he gives you like the facts about the animals. So that is perfect. 10 out of 10 implementation there. Hopefully they announce more dates because I would love to go to this.
Yeah.
But Charles, that is all the news that we're going to cover, at least in this segment. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to give our hands-on impressions of some of the games we sat down with during Summer Game Fest, as well as some other announcements of the games that we saw. We will be right back. We are back, and now Charles and I are going to break down some of the games that we saw during Summer Game Fest. Obviously, a lot of the games that we saw are unfortunately not coming to Switch, so all this episode will focus on the Switch titles. You can check out more impressions from us, as well as Alex Van Aken on GameInformer.com or on this week's Game Informer Show podcast, with which both Charles and I were on and talking about kind of the wider range of games that we saw. So, Charles, we're going to start here. One of the more unexpected announcements during Summer Game Fest actually came from PlayStation. We got a trailer for LEGO Horizon Adventures, which is like a LEGO adaptation of the PlayStation exclusive Horizon Zero Dawn. And the synopsis says it is a, quote, playful and lighthearted story inspired by the events of the world of Horizon. It's being co-developed by the studio behind Horizon, Guerrilla Games, and a studio called Studio Gobo, who I did a little research into them, and they seem like they are a co-developer by design.
Yeah.
And seemingly they worked on Hogwarts Legacy. And also, Kotaku had an interview with Guerrilla Games, the development lead producer at Guerrilla Games, and they said, does the fact that the game is coming out on Switch, does that mean that Aloy can now join the Super Smash Brothers roster? And he said, quote, that'd be nice. If you speak to Nintendo and they want to invite us, let me know.
Wow.
So it comes out sometime this year. But Charles, you actually got to play it.
I did, yeah.
So give us like your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I'm a big Lego guy from day one. So it was really interesting to see this take on not just Horizon, but on like a Lego game from someone that's not TT Games. And obviously, like Switch is a great place to play a lot of the Lego games. Like they have always been like a little bit too powerful, I think, for like Nintendo's past consoles. But I think like the Switch is a good like middle ground. And yeah, so this game is like the events of the first Horizon game. It's kind of watching some of the cutscenes. It's really funny because you have like writers from Guerrilla and the original voice actors basically making a parody of their own game. And these actors are saying the lines. Aloy is like her character in the normal game is like, she's like kind. She always wants to help. She's not too serious, but generally, you know, she takes her situation seriously. Aloy in the Lego game is like, all right, let's go. What are we going to do? Uh-oh. Like she's a lot more like chipper and energetic, which I think is very funny and like definitely propels the game. And yeah, it's like, it is a Lego game, but it's a lot more of a Horizon game than I thought. So you are like sneaking in the grass. There's different types of monsters you're fighting, the robots. They have weak points. They have specific weaknesses. If you have fire, that's good against like certain parts of them. You can still use your focus that Aloy has in the games to like scan them and see which parts you should target. And yeah, playing it was like a lot of fun. It was pretty straightforward, but it wasn't so straightforward that it would be like, you know, hard for a kid to play. And yeah, all the environments are really nice looking. Every single bit is made out of Legos. Like in past games, there would be like mostly Legos, but then some like rendered realistic kind of terrain, and this is like, no, that water is made of little Lego bits. Every tree in the distance is a Lego tree. And the characters also all move like Legos, whereas like the Lego games would kind of take their forms and kind of just add like a human skeleton inside. And this is a lot more like you can see their legs kind of move back and forth like they do in like the Lego movie or any of those movies. And yeah, I have fun, charming, super weird. I'm very excited to play more, and I'm amazed that it exists.
Yeah, especially after the head of PlayStation Studios, Herman Hulst, came out and was like, we're going to continue to put our live service games on other platforms like day and date, like PC in particular. He was talking about like Helldivers. It came to PC and PS5 on the same day. But he was like, oh, for our big like single player exclusives, we're going to do those like with a window of exclusivity for PlayStation, and then maybe we'll consider bringing it over to other platforms. So that's why this was such a surprise. Like I think this actually leaked like a little bit before the showcase, but it didn't leak that it was coming to Switch. That was like a big reveal. So that's really cool. Like I'm excited for this. I don't know if you are a Horizon fan. I loved that first one. That first one was one of my favorite games. I mean, that year in general was unbelievable. I mean, that was 2017, which Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, Yakuza 0, Mario Odyssey. Horizon Zero Dawn was right up there like for me. Like it was in that mix. Like that's how much I love that first game. Second game I enjoyed as well, but like I didn't get all the way through it. But what's your experience with the Horizon series?
I have attempted to get into Horizon Zero Dawn 2 separate times, and both times I got about like 10 or 12 hours in and then was kind of like, I think I'm done. I don't hate it, but it doesn't like grab me the way some other similar games did. And I was always like fine with that. I enjoyed the hours I put in, but I was always like, this is a good stopping point for me. So I am kind of excited to play the Lego game and figure out like what actually happens in the story, even though it's like a kind of edited and abridged version. But I'll definitely this will be my like first proper dive into that universe.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool universe. Like I really like those games a lot, and I wish I spent more time with Horizon Forbidden West. Honestly, I have very little interest in going and checking out the VR game that they put out, but I'm sure it's solid as far as like VR games are concerned. But yeah, that is coming out sometime this year. I'll go next. Let's see, what do I want to go for here? Let's do Sonic X Shadow Generations.
Yeah.
That is the upcoming remaster of the Sonic Generations game that came out in 2011. And I know that's kind of prime Charles playing these kind of games era. Like you were 11 at the time. Did you check this one out when it came out?
Yeah, I joke a lot about Sonic and the Black Knight being my favorite Sonic game only because I feel like no one else has played it, so I just always end up talking about it. But Sonic Generations is like actually my favorite Sonic game. Like that's one
It's really good.
I've played all the way through. I also enjoy it being a like best of thing because it's like I haven't played every Sonic game, but I played Sonic Generations, so I understand some of the references people make to certain like levels and locations. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of that game.
Yeah, it's one of the better games from that era of Sonic, and I'm surprised it took this long to get a remaster. So basically, Sonic X Shadow Generations. By the way, I did clarify with Sega that it is X. The X is pronounced Sonic X Shadow. It's not cross. It's not silent. It is Sonic X Shadow Generation. I don't like it, but I got to play Green Hill Zone Act 1 and 2 as Sonic, which is in the original Sonic Generations, and runs super smooth. Basically, the Sonic campaign is it's expanded on, but it's like the same campaign, right? And it's the Shadow thing is standalone, so it's not like you're just playing through Sonic Generations and suddenly there's a Shadow level thrown in. It's like no, it's a separate story mode, and they are adding a couple things. A Chow Rescue feature, which I'm not entirely sure what that is all about. And then there is they're adding the Casino Night Zone, which was previously, I think, Steam exclusive DLC for the Sonic Generations. So they're adding that into the Sonic campaign as well, which is very cool. And then on the Shadow side, I got to play Space Colony Arc Act 1, which allowed you to use chaos control. So he has these different powers that he can use, and the one that was offered in that is chaos control. So there were like missiles coming in, he could freeze them and then use them almost as stairs to get up to a higher platform.
Mm.
And then like missiles would be coming in, he could freeze them and then run around them before they hit him. And then I've played a boss battle against BioLizard, who was like one of the main bosses of Sonic Adventure 2. And basically, like, it starts off on like the circular ring, like circular platform, the way that the original BioLizard battle was. Then it opens up, and like there's like he grows like these tentacle arms, and he starts slamming them down. You have to avoid the tentacles, and then also avoid the shockwaves. And then on the final form, he sends like this giant energy ball at you. He goes up like on the wall, sends this giant energy ball. You have to chaos control the ball and then hit it back at him. And then he spawns like all the bubbles, and you have to like homing attack your way up there and deliver the final blow. So I really liked that. I really liked how Shadow controlled. The Sonic portion was smooth as silk. I think it was like might have been the PS5 build that I was playing,
Mm-hmm.
if memory serves. But yeah, I am stoked for this. I love that like Sonic Generations, the base game, is just basically like a greatest hits remake, right? It's like, okay, we're
Yeah,
gonna do
yeah.
Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. We're gonna do Chemical Plant Zone in Sonic 2, or Casino Night was the Sonic 3 representation, and it was only Steam exclusive. So I'm glad that's being included in this bundle. Sky Sanctuary was the Sonic and Knuckles representation, and it just goes on from there all the way up through all the mainline Sonic games, and I think it goes all the way up through Sonic Unleashed was the last game that was represented in there. And then of course there's like there are boss battles scattered throughout there as well. Like, there's boss battles that you take on from, I think Sonic 2 has a boss battle. I think Sonic Adventure has a boss battle, and then so on from there. And then, there's final boss that is exclusive to Sonic Generations that's in there as well. So very, very cool. I'm excited to see how they leverage like other elements from Shadow's past. But Sonic X Shadow Generations comes out October 25th. That was another piece of news that came out of Summer Game Fest.
Sick.
So a game that's coming to Switch that neither of us have played, but I know you're very excited about. It's called Neva.
Yeah.
Neva. So why are you so excited about this game?
Well, so the studio also made a game called Grease, which is a kind of like emotional, a silent emotional journey that this like woman goes on, and as you go through, it has like this really cool art style. It's kind of like a platforming puzzle game, and I enjoyed it a lot, but as I was playing it, it was just like a tad slow for my taste. Like, at everything I wanted, I just was kind of wanting to be like a little bit more engaged with it than I was. And Neva is like the same type of game, except there's action in it now. And it's got the same studio, and it's got basically all the same things I like from the first game. But there's just like few more elements that are going to like keep me interested the whole time. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, neither of us got our hands on it. But if you listen to the Game Informer Show podcast, Alex Van Aken spoke very highly about his hands-on time with it. So we'll just keep on rolling. Do you have another one you want to talk about?
I had one. I think I can talk about it in terms of. Actually, let me double check the embargo before I start saying.
Well, while you do that, I'll talk about my next one on the list. SteamWorld Heist 2. This is a sequel to it was 2013, I think, was when the first one came out on 3DS. It was a 3DS exclusive.
Right.
And then it eventually made its way to every other major platform. It is turn-based tactics, but it's side-scrolling, which is extremely novel in my opinion. And basically, like, you take your turn, and like you have a certain number of spaces you can move, and then you have to aim and shoot, and you can like do trick shots off walls and ceilings and stuff, and take out enemies, go screen by screen, and then like there's often a time where like you have to like evacuate, or like you just have to get out of there fast while enemies keep spawning, and it's very, very neat. Like, I never put any time into SteamWorld Heist 1, but like getting my hands on SteamWorld Heist 2 at Summer Game Fest Playdays made me just so excited to like play this game when it comes out that I re-downloaded SteamWorld Heist 1 on my Switch.
Nice.
And it's funny because I was like, oh man, I should really like look into buying it. It's actually on sale. SteamWorld Heist 1 is actually on sale. I think it's like an absurd price as well.
Yeah, those games get really cheap. after the
Let me see what,
fact.
because I saw it was on sale on. Let's see. Oh God, it is SteamWorld Heist 1 Ultimate Edition on Switch for the next week is on sale for $2. So
Jeez.
you should. It's normally $20.
Yeah,
$2, 90% off.
that's nuts.
So you should absolutely go check that out. But yeah, this one has all kinds of additions and everything. Like, I'm trying to find the exact number of like. Okay, so 10 crewmates that you can recruit. They all have like deep customization, class-based customization. You can apply different classes to different characters if you want. So like, maybe one is a sniper, one has an SMG. The SMG is better like up close and like delivers like kill shots that are like that can go through other enemies and everything. So like you can actually take out two enemies at once. While another one could be a sniper. Another one could have shotgun or like melee, and it's just so satisfying. Like I played through like 4 missions, and like your equipped weapon determines like what abilities you have, but you can also like develop multiple classes on the same character that will
Mm.
allow them to have abilities from other classes. So you can really like theory craft these characters. And there's also an overworld map where you're piloting a ship around and other ships will attack you. So you have to upgrade your ship as well because it has weapons that you can fire at them. It's a top-down like ship battle mechanic as well. That's very, very neat. I had a blast with it. It made me so excited to play this game. And this is another one of those that's like, oh my God, I can't wait for this. I'm going to download SteamWorld Heist on my Switch. And sure enough, I did. I'm going to probably play a little bit of that as well if I don't dive into those other games that I said I'm going to.
Mhm.
But we'll see how that goes. But that comes out August 8th.
Sick, yeah.
Coming up very fast on us. But all right, did you find if you're able to talk about the one you wanted to talk about?
I am. So this falls kind of in the category of like it's not confirmed for Switch, but I feel like it's got to come to Switch at some point. But I don't really know. Cozy Grove 2. I
Oh,
get to check out. So the developers have since been purchased by Netflix, or acquired is probably the more correct term. So it was a Netflix game. I played it on an iPad, but Cozy Grove 1 is on Switch. It's a good cozy type game that people on Switch would like. Cozy Grove 2 is interesting. I'm talking to the developers about it as I was playing. It was cool. And basically the reason they're making a second game is they made the first Cozy Grove and they were adding post-launch support and doing all sorts of stuff. But kind of like, I think the same thing kind of with Destiny 2, where they're like, we want to keep supporting this game forever, but we didn't build a game with the infrastructure to allow us to do that. So Cozy Grove 2 is basically them being like, this is a game, this is the new base, this is going to be a game that is going to exist for a long time. And it was cool just to see like the new stuff. I wasn't super familiar with the base game, but they were talking a lot about like the stories of all these. I guess if you haven't played the game, the base pitch of it is you are a little camper. You come to a cozy grove. In this case, it's on an island. And there's all these like spirits of bears that have passed away. And their ghosts are like fun manifestations of the things they like to do. So the two I encountered, one was a like box of colored pencils bear, and the other was like a gamer streamer bear. And they all have like tons of dialogue. It's a very like handcrafted experience. And the main difference between the second game and the first game is that in the first game, your islands were procedurally generated. And in this game, it's like one handcrafted big island that you'll like unlock as you keep playing.
oh,
So for fans of that genre, it seems pretty cool. I don't know exactly when it comes out.
Cozy Grove.
Cozy Grove 2.
Let's
Oh,
see what.
June. It comes out June 25th on Netflix.
Oh, so mobile, right?
Yeah. Mobile,
Okay.
iPad. Hopefully comes to Switch in the future, because I know eventually, I think that first game launched on like Apple Arcade and then eventually came to Switch. So if
Yeah.
you're interested in the first Cozy Grove from Switch, you can play the sequel on Netflix, or hopefully it'll come to Switch someday.
Also, the first game is currently on sale on Switch as well.
Oh,
This one's only for 50% off. Sorry, but it's only $7.50 if you want the digital, the regular digital version. The other digital version, which is Cozy Grove plus New Neighbors bundle.
Yep.
I guess that's a DLC, or is that a separate game?
I think it's
No,
DLC.
that's looks like DLC. But but yeah, came to Switch in 2021, and this one I would be shocked if it didn't as well come to Switch. How many more do you have? I only have one more.
I think I'm done. I think those were
Okay.
my two Switch games.
I will say, not a lot of games coming to Switch in this year at Summer Game Fest. I hope that like the Nintendo Direct that I'm gonna guess that's what we're talking about next week.
Yeah.
That is my prediction, is that next week we will be doing a recap episode of Nintendo Direct. I really hope so, because I feel like there's not a lot of stuff coming to Switch from what we saw. And there's some stuff that I played and I'm like, oh, this would be great on Switch. And like, oh, PS5, Xbox, and PC. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But
some PC stuff too that I'm like, this would be perfect for Switch. I played a lot of indies that I'm like, I know this could run on Switch. I know they probably want it to run on Switch. So I'm hoping we get like maybe just a bunch of announcements next week. They're like holding
maybe
off
that's
until
what the
when
Direct
happens.
Yeah, the ones that like really stood out to me that I played that I was like, this would be perfect on Switch. Rusty Rabbit, which is like a 2.5D action game where you play as a rat, like a foul-mouthed rabbit in a mech. It was very fun. What little I got to check out. And then Parcel Corp, which is like a bike delivery game that's basically like an homage to Jet Set Radio meets Crazy Taxi. So, and it has an art style that doesn't seem like it would be super demanding on a Switch, but it is currently not slated for Switch. But I would be surprised if we did not get those at some point, at least on Switch 2. And then the final one that I did play that is actually coming to Switch is Yars Rising. This is another Atari joint, and this is actually being made by Way Forward. So the developers behind like Shantae and
Indivisible, I think.
Oh God, is that them as well? I think maybe. And Contra Operation Galuga is another game that they worked on. Let's see. We got some Shantae. We got some Mighty Switch Force.
Oh, they didn't do Indivisible. I guess I just got the vibes of it.
I think that is God, Indivisible. That's Chloe or Clay, right?
It says
Clay
Lab Zero Games.
Oh, okay. How would I say Chloe? Clay is the name of the developer I was thinking of. Did River City Girls, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, Lunark, all kinds of great stuff. Operation Galuga, the Contra game that I reviewed earlier this year. But Yars Rising, it's like a stealth action Mega Man game meets Metroidvania Light from what I've seen. And you play as a hacker named Yar. It's a sequel to 1982's Yar's Revenge, which was one of the more classic Atari games back in the day. And this is a completely different style of game, but it pays homage to Yar's Revenge through the hacking minigame, which is actually like a minigame based on Yar's Revenge, which is very neat. And then on top of that, there are like Easter eggs for like Atari stuff all throughout. Like I told this on the Game Informer show this week, but like there's a character named Missile Commander that you have to fight. It's a boss battle, and it uses like similar inspiration of like mechanics from Missile Command, the 82 or 1980 Atari game, where he'll shoot rockets up in the air, and Yar has like this attack. I think it's called a Firefly drone, where it's basically like Ness's PK Thunder from Smash Brothers, and you have to go up and like intercept these missiles that are coming down, and then like once he like stops his attack, you can unload on him and do damage. I had a really great time with this, and there's like cool like upgrades that you can equip to Yar, and a lot of them are like augmenting, and like it's all like you have to like snap them in almost in the shape of the Yar character. Like that's how it is. So like you can put like a whole bunch of upgrades on her, but they have to fit in like a puzzle almost to like be in the shape of Yar. Like that's the slots that you have. So it's almost like a cool like inventory management, like in like a Capcom style way, where like you're kind of like Tetrising them together in certain ways. So that is coming at some point in 2024, and I am stoked for that one. But anything else you want to shout out at Summer Game Fest? We're going to talk about non-Nintendo or like kind of like your favorite stuff overall in the final segment of this. But any other cool memories, cool things that happened to you? We had a Game Informer reunion dinner that was very fun.
A highlight I would mention. Yeah, we saw Game Informers of years past, and I got to like connect with all of them.
Yeah, like Ben Hansen, shout out, MinnMax's own. Elise Favis, Imran Khan. Let's see who else there. Jeff Cork,
Dan
obviously
Tack.
Dan Tack, Alex Van Aken, current Game Informer,
Mhm.
John Carson, who a lot of these people have been on All Things Nintendo in the past. Who are we forgetting?
Jill
Jill
Grote.
Grote. How can we forget Jill? She's probably been on All Things Nintendo more than all of them, and she sat like right across from me. So yeah,
Mhm.
good group of people.
Yeah.
And it was so great to catch up with all of them. Also, while I was out and about, got to see a lot of former Game Informer peeps that did not make it to that dinner, like Matt Burtz, Andy McNamara, JV Gwaltney, Alex Stadnick, all salt of the earth people. So happy to run into them. Every single time I go to these events, it's like one big, like, I don't know if it's family reunion or high school reunion is like the better way to go about like
Uh-huh.
describing it. But I know that the last day always feels almost like the last day of school, where like you're not going to see so many of your friends for like several months.
Yeah.
And that's always so sad, even though like you're so excited that like school's over, you're about to like get to like spend your summer like doing whatever you want to do. And or in my case, like I finally get to sleep. But uh it's always a bummer to like go our separate ways and be like, oh, let's keep in touch. Like it was so rad like hanging out with you. And then like, inevitably you don't get to like hang out or like catch up with the people as much as you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, amazing experience. I love these events. I love Summer Game Fest. I love the Game Awards. I love the dearly departed E3.
Rest in
Always
peace.
just amazing times. Just reminders of why it is that like I love doing my job, and like why it is that like I have spent the last 16 plus years of my life devoted to doing this stuff. But Charles, we're going to take a final break of this episode, and when we get back, we're going to do definitive ranking, and then we're going to get out of here. We will be right back. We are back, and it's time for Definitive Ranking, a recurring segment where we take a Nintendo topic and give our own personal top 5 lists. Since we're coming off Summer Game Fest, and that is basically all we talked about this episode, Charles, I want to get your top 5 things you saw at Summer Game Fest, and for the sake of differentiating this a little from our last segment, let's open it up to the entirety of SGF and the surrounding events. So start at 5, count it down to 1, give me a quick sentence or two about each.
All right. Are we going to go back and forth? You just want me to do all 5?
You start first,
right.
And then I'll give my top 5.
Number 5, I'm going to go Flock. This is a game I saw at the Annapurna Interactive booth. It's like a really cool game. You're flying around on a big bird, and you're basically classifying these little animals. And it's kind of like if when you caught Pokemon, you had to match the Pokemon to a description of the Pokemon. So I really enjoyed that like cool take on like a Pokemon Snap type thing. My 4, I'm going to put Assassin's Creed Shadows. I was interested in that game beforehand, but once I saw the gameplay, super into the dual protagonists, the way they each like will be able to interact with the world. I'm very excited to spend a lot of time there. My number 3 is a game called UFO 50. This is a game developed by a bunch of indie developers, including the Spelunky dev and the person that made Downwell and Point B. And it is a collection of 50 games made for a fictional video game console that existed from the year 1985 to 1992. And you can play through the games in chronological order and see this fictional console like develop over time.
What is this called again?
UFO 50.
Interesting. I did not hear anything about that.
This game looks nuts. I wish I could have spent more than like 10 minutes with it. But there's like a golf game that's multiplayer, and then there's like a 60-hour JRPG they said is inside this game. Like, they were like, it's not mini games; these are actual games. They announced it in 2017 and said it would be out by 2018. It's coming out this year. So,
well, yeah, if you're making a 60-hour RPG as part of one of 50 games,
yeah,
September 18th, 2024. I'm looking at the Steam page right now. Mossmouth. Oh yeah. So Mossmouth did Spelunky 2.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
But it's them and then like 6 other people. It's like a whole
So wait, it's like NES style graphics. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm looking at this. This is unbelievable. Charles, what have you done?
I don't know. I didn't mention this at all. I don't think it's confirmed to be coming to Switch at all. But some of them are multiplayer. I played through a bunch of them with my MinnMax coworker Janet Garcia, and we did some like competitive stuff. But then there's also like co-op games. Um,
I'm kind of
yeah,
in awe of this, actually.
yeah,
Like, this
yeah.
is
It's amazing.
incredible. Wow. Well, yeah, this would be just a travesty if this did not come to Switch.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But all right, I'm sorry for derailing you there.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
fine.
continue
I
on.
appreciate your appreciation. Number two, I'm going to put Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Yes.
I saw like a behind closed door preview of this, and I got to see some like more stuff than we saw just in the gameplay reveal. Obviously, the next Game Informer cover, but completely unrelated to that fact. I am so excited for this game. Um, all the like Dungeons and Dragons energy in me saw every piece of this game, and I was like, oh, this was like made for me. And I've also never played a Dragon Age game, and this seems to be like a good spot for me to jump in. So I'm excited about that. And number one, you know him, you love him. It's got to be Astrobot.
Yes.
Went hands on with this. It's just such a good game. At least in the two levels I played, I love Astro's Playroom, and then this is like poised to be like honestly one of the better games in the entire PS5 library. And the section I played could probably go toe to toe with like even some of Nintendo's best 3D stuff. Is how great this game looks.
God, that's my biggest regret of Summer Game Fest. I didn't get a chance to try that out. Astro's Playroom was one of my favorite games of like that early window of PS5.
Yeah.
Like I think I mentioned this on the Game Informer show, where it's like that and like Miles Morales. Those were like the two that like really anchored my PS. Oh, and then also the fact that Ghost of Tsushima you could play at 60 frames per second, and like
Yes.
that completely changed everything for that game, because it's already a gorgeous game, but then add on that and it's like, wow, like this looks so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Astrobot, I cannot wait for that. And it's a shame that, I mean, it's so obviously has to be exclusive to PS5 just because it's like so much about the DualSense controller. But it's a shame that like Switch people can't experience that, because it's
Yeah.
like a perfect fit for the platform if it had like its own version of the DualSense.
Yeah, it's very much the thing of like it didn't really ever make sense to get a PS5 for a kid before now, and now it's like your kid wants PS5, Astrobot. That's like their entry level game. That's going to be like the exclusive you would buy that console for, assuming it's as good as it is when I played it. But
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt it's going to be amazing, especially the pedigree that they have, how good that first game was. I mean, even the Astrobot Rescue Mission, the VR title,
mhm.
that was also really good. That was like one of the best things PSVR had on it. So like the fact that now they've broken out of the VR fold, they can now make just straightforward, fun platforming games. God, I want to play that so bad. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be one of those games that is like probably in my top 5 if it delivers on like the promise of how good it can
Yeah.
be. But yeah, that's a solid list. We have a couple. I think we only have one actually that overlaps here. No, two.
Ooh.
We have two. We have two.
Okay.
Number 5 for me, SteamWorld Heist 2, for all the reasons I said earlier in the last segment. That's the only one that we've talked about so far on, at least on the Switch side of things, that I wanted to shout out. Number 4, Metaphor Refantasio.
Oh yeah.
So that's the new game from the Persona developers, and they're making a new game set in a fantasy setting. This could very well be the game that I end up liking the most out of all of these titles, but just based on what I played, it's at number 4, but still extremely hyped for it. It has like line-based combat. It's very much of the Persona like formula, I think.
Mhm.
You can summon like they're called archetypes in this instead of personas, and there's a line-based combat system, but it's still very much turn-based, where the UI is even very similar to the Persona franchise, but it has a style of its own. Metaphor Refantasio. It's not coming to Switch, but it looks like it's going to be fantastic. Number 3, Monster Hunter Wilds. That was one of the more impressive demos that I saw. I didn't get to play it, but I got to watch like the director, I think, give a demo, and just some of like the emergent storytelling that's going to come out of this game. Like, oh, I was being chased by this monster, and then all of a sudden all these other monsters, because we went through their territory, jumped on it and started attacking it. Like I saw that happen in the game. Like they led it through like another monster's territory, and like all of like the little baby monsters jumped up and started attacking it. and then they let it through another one, and then like a sand pit opened up and the monster got sucked into it. The other monster started attacking it. And then they let it into like the middle of a storm, and like the apex monster flew out while like thunder's crashing or lightning's crashing down. It was just like almost like white knuckled even watching this chase sequence happen. I was like, man, this looks amazing. Number 2, Dragon Age the Veilguard. I didn't get to stick around for the entire demo, unfortunately. I kind of snuck in and was like, hey, can I see like a little bit of the demo? But the animations looked really, really impressive. Like I see a lot of people saying they don't like the art style, but I think they're basing it just off that cinematic trailer and like maybe some of the art they put out. But like in action, the art style and the animations are fantastic. I've always been more of a Mass Effect guy when it comes to BioWare games, but Dragon Age the Veilguard might be the first Dragon Age title that I put a lot of time into. Like I tried Inquisition, kind of bounced off it after a few hours. This one looks like it might be right up my alley.
Yeah.
Speaking of right up my alley, Assassin's Creed Shadows was my number 1 game of Summer Game Fest and the surrounding events. This was, I mean, technically not Summer Game Fest. It was Ubisoft Forward. But man, the behind closed doors demo that we saw just spoke to me in a way that a game hasn't spoken to me since probably Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The ability to choose between your 2 protagonists, whether you want Yasuke or what's the other character's name? Naue. One is being a giant brute of a samurai. The other one being a stealthy shinobi, but can still like hold her own in a like hand-to-hand situation. And like the missions that they showed the same mission 3 different ways. They showed Yasuke going in like straightforward action. They showed Naue going in stealthy, and they showed Naue going in with the action element as well. And it looks so up my alley. The combat looks brutal. It looks fun, and it looks like the Assassin's Creed games that I used to obsess over. Very much looking forward to getting back to that. I love the feudal Japan setting. I sunk like 60 hours into Ghost of Tsushima, so like I'm ready for this. Assassin's Creed Shadows, my number 1 game of Summer Game Fest and its surrounding events 2024. But Charles, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo.
Of course, it was a delight.
I'm so happy you were finally able to join me for the independent version of the show.
I almost told you before the podcast started, and I wanted to keep it for the podcast. Love the new theme music. So cool that you got him. Yeah, what a composer, what a song. Very excited to have my words follow that piece of art.
Well, it's about to kick back off right now as I start this spiel in the outro. But yeah, seriously, shout out T. Lopes. Thank you so much for an incredible theme song that really delivers perfect energy for this show, I think, and like kicks us off on the right foot every single episode. So let's fire that up right now. And as I launch into the final spiel here, thank you so much to everyone for listening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, throw All Things Nintendo a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. If you want to get any questions or comments in, you can get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com. Hit me up on social media at Brian P. Shea, or leave a comment on the free All Things Nintendo Patreon page. We also have an All Things Nintendo channel on the Game Informer community Discord, which is a perk for subscribing to the Twitch channel of Game Informer, even just for 1 month. Charles, where can people find you on the internet?
Find me at ChuckDoug365 on basically every social media platform, and of course in Game Informer magazine, which you can subscribe to.
And MinnMax. You were actually out at Summer Game Fest for MinnMax and Game Informer, kind of like a joint effort there. But yeah.
Yes, I was on the most recent episode of the MinnMax show talking about Summer Game Fest. We're gonna have a travel log that's like footage of our whole journey throughout there. And then recently on MinnMax, I did a Dungeons and Dragons one shot.
Yes.
If you like D&D, you can check that out and see me being a bunch of goofy dudes.
That is our show for this week. Thank you all again so much for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time.